It's 8 minutes past 8 o'clock. Now, do you remember the Orange People, the cult-like movement from the 80s? Well, they were led by the controversial spiritual leader known as Bhagwan Rajneeshee, or Osho.
The Indian guru had his followers virtually take over the US state of Oregon. They were supposed to be peace-loving people, but they committed a number of serious crimes. He died almost 20 years ago, but the teaching of the Bhagwan are still around today, including devotees here in Australia. He offered his disciples salvation. Followers would hang on his every word. In the early 80s, the Bhagwan left his Indian ashram for a small town in Oregon, creating his own utopian city, Rajneeshpuram. But the Bhagwan's spiritual ideas were often overshadowed by displays of extreme wealth, including his fleet of Rolls Royces. The free love philosophy of the Orange People turned sour, and his committed spokesperson, Sheila, turned against him.
Be careful. It's a game where you risk it all.
Sheila was just one of the followers who ended up in jail for assault, attempted murder, arson and food poisoning. The Bhagwan himself was deported from America after facing charges of immigration fraud. He's said to have died of a heart attack in 1990.
Well, joining us now is one woman who fell under the Bhagwan's spell for many years, so much so that she was willing to commit murder for her master. Jane Stork joins us. Thank you for your time. Good morning.
Good morning, Kosha. Good morning, Mel.
It's an incredible story. In the beginning, you were married and living in WA, a normal Catholic upbringing. You had 2 small children, and that's when you decided to follow Bhagwan Rajneeshee to India and then later to the US. Just explain to us what he was like in the beginning. You talk in the book that he was sort of very warm and was all very welcoming.
I was totally fascinated with him. I thought he was a very wise man, a mystic. For me, that was something very exotic, something that I'd never come across before. And being in his presence, I felt very privileged. I felt I was one of the chosen ones.
So he really did have that magnetism that could sway personalities and was like a magnet to you.
For me, definitely. He was a magnet, yes.
And then being on the inside among his followers, you were ordered to do a lot of things that were obviously, when I say obviously, I suppose looking back a little strange, but at the time not. Things like amassing weapons, firearms.
That happened slowly, so that you didn't really notice at first. It was a very large property, there were a lot of people there, and it happened without really being aware of it until they were there.
Because like this all happened in my era growing up, and which is why I was fascinated with your book. It gives you always wondered, what was it like in there? Was it sort of just, the flower power, free sex, that sort of stuff, or was it spiritual, or what was it?
I think it was everything. For us, those of us who were in it, it was all of that. It was flower power, free sex, and spiritual.
Yeah, because that was the era, wasn't it?
It was. It was an era, it was a time of real rebellion of young people, finding new ways, rebelling against their parents and everything that society had taught them. And Bhagwan attracted thousands of followers from all over the world.
One of the things I think we remember too from that time when he was in the States was particularly his fleet of Rolls Royce and the amazing material wealth that he amassed. What was all of that like? What did you think of all of that at the time?
Well, even if one thought that it was a bit odd for a spiritual man to be amassing more than 90 Rolls Royces in 4 years, Bhagwan would always turn the thing around if people were critical and say, see, I don't need these Rolls Royces. These are just to show you your pettiness, how jealous you are, how envious you can be. So any kind of criticism that may have come up was always turned around so that the person who was being critical felt, oh, how foolish of me. Of course Bhagwan knows. He's the master, he understands, and I don't.
So you were brainwashed, basically?
Brainwashing is a term that I have a problem with, but when you allow yourself into a group like that, then by definition, you become brainwashed because you want it.
When did reality set in?
Reality set in 1985. I'd already been with Bhagwan for 9 years when I tried to kill his doctor.
Why?
I thought his doctor was going to kill him. And I wanted to save Bhagwan because I felt Bhagwan was the savior of the world.
Was it a sort of a sudden awakening? Did you have a moment when you suddenly stopped and went, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Yes, exactly. I knew in that moment that I attacked a man and tried to kill him. I knew that I had gone as far as I could possibly go from everything that I knew was right, and that I had to get out of there.
But you were still under the spell of the Bhagwan.
Yes. It wasn't easy to get out.
How did you?
It took me 6 weeks after the attack, and it actually took... Sheila decided to leave Bhagwan. Sheila was his secretary, his mouthpiece. I think she's well known in Australia. And when Sheila said she was leaving, I knew if she could leave, I could leave too. And I left.
Just, what's it like now, having a book out? It's very, very open and frank. Obviously, it was a major chapter in your life, and then leaving, then your time in jail, and now you're living in Germany, obviously very different life. What's it like now having all of this out in the open? Does it bring it all back to you? Do you look at it differently?
I think it was important for me to write the book. It was closing, as you rightly say, a very big chapter in my life, and being absolutely honest and open about things, which I never was in my life earlier, and certainly not with Bhagwan. I never wanted to face reality, and that was the one thing I learned from being with Bhagwan, was to face reality. Instead of following a dream, to look at the thing as it really is. And one thing I'm really conscious of today is how important family is. My parents stuck by me, they loved me no matter what. My husband stood by me, and my children showed remarkable courage and strength to come through all of that, to be the very wonderful adults that they turned out to be.
It's a really amazing lesson, isn't it?
Yeah.
And a lot of people should read it. As I say, in my vintage, I'm sounding really old, that was the dominant story of the time. It was incredible. Yeah. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Kochi. Thank you.
And the book is called Breaking the Spell by Jane Stork, and fascinating.
It's a really interesting read.